Chapter 18 Cowboys Don't Cry by Marilyn Halvorson. I woke up tired, confused, and hurting because being unconscious 10 hours hadn't changed hadn't changed things a whole lot. I made the mistake of opening my eyes, and a nurse pounced on me. Well, good morning, and how's our boy today? All sunshine and butterflies, that one. I wondered if she was a hallucination. I kind of hoped so. I gave her a dirty look and closed my eyes again. The next time I woke up was a little better. I still wasn't feeling great, but I was thinking more clearly. I opened my eyes carefully. If that nurse was around, I was planning on playing possum. I was not in the mood for a chat. No one was in sight, so I took a good look at the situation. The first thing I saw was my leg. It was hung in the air, attached to enough weights and cables to raise the Titanic. I guess they had the chunk of bone stuffed back into place anyway, because everything was neat and tidy. My left hand hurt, and when I went to move it, I saw something really jab me. I turned my head and saw a tube sticking in my hand. Some colorless stuff was dripping down from a bottle on a stand. I looked like the star attraction on one of those medical shows. My mouth was dry, and it tasted like a bear had been hibernating in it. I swallowed and ran my tongue over my teeth. My teeth. They were all there, after all. I wouldn't have to go to the dentist. Then I noticed that my bottom lip felt kind of fat. I touched it with my hand and wished I hadn't. It was all stitched up like a quilt. So that was where all the blood had been coming from. Oh well, anything but teeth. I sure wanted a drink. I thought about pushing the buzzer, but I was afraid old Sunshine might come back. I'd wait. It wasn't too long before a nurse showed up. It wasn't Sunshine. It was an older one who looked tired and kind of grumpy. About time you were awake, she said. I suppose you're thirsty. I nodded, and she handed me a glass with a bent straw. Careful, you've got some stitches in your lip. I noticed, I croaked. The juice helped. I sounded almost normal when I asked, how long am I going to be in here? Well, it's a bit soon to say. Why don't you just relax and concentrate on getting better? Relax? Had she ever tried relaxing tied up like a calf at branding time? I looked her right in the eye. So give me a rough estimate. A week? 2? She sighed. Don't count on it, son. If you're lucky, you might get out of traction in a month. A month? I almost whispered it as I stared up at all that apparatus. Then a terrible thought hit me. How do I get out of all this stuff when I have to go to the bathroom? She smiled a wise and weary smile and said, I'm afraid you don't. Just then a cute red-headed candy striper came in, and that killed that conversation. I wasn't going any farther on that subject with her there. Mrs. Redmond, she said to the nurse, there's someone here to see Shane Morgan. Is he allowed company? Mrs. Redmond looked me over like she was trying to decide if I was going to survive. I didn't give her any encouragement. Nobody could survive a month with their leg tied to the ceiling. I'll check it out, she said, and they both left. I wondered if it was Dad out there. No, it wouldn't be. He hadn't come last night, so why should I expect him today? But someone was here last night. I had the weirdest half memory of it. Then the door opened and Mrs. Sutherland came in. I don't know why, but I almost started bawling when I saw her. She sat down beside me. Well, Tiger, you look better than you did last night. I tried to grin and jumped at the pain that shot through my lip. She put her hand on my arm. Easy, Shane. Just lie still and listen, okay? I talked to the doctor. He says it's a pretty bad break, but he thinks it should heal as good as ever. Yeah? After a month or more of being tied up like this, I said, furiously glaring at all the stuff around me. Mrs. Sutherland stopped smiling. She was dead serious when she said, "If you only knew how lucky you are to have a leg to tie up." That shut me up for a minute, but there was one question I had to ask, even though I didn't think I wanted to hear the answer. "Where's Dad?" I said. I'd never known, Mrs. Sutherland, not to be able to look you in the eye when she told you something, but now she looked down, wound her watch as she answered so low I could hardly hear her. "I don't know. He hasn't come home since the accident." She looked up and saw the look on my face. "Listen, Shane, I know how it must seem to you, but try to understand how." I turned my face into the pillow. "My leg's hurting. Just leave me alone." She sighed and was quiet for a long time. Then she stood up. "Okay, if that's the way you want it, it's time I was getting home anyway." I hadn't meant to hurt her feelings. Jeff had sure been right about me not being good at untangling things. All I did was make a mess worse. Then I looked up into her face, and I knew what I'd been half remembering about last night. "Hey," I said, "I'm sorry I kept calling you Mum last night." She gave me a funny look, and her voice sounded kind of hoarse when she answered, "Don't be sorry, Shane. I'm not." Suddenly she bent over and kissed my cheek. Then she was gone, and that hospital turned into the lonesomest place in the world. I didn't go to sleep for a long time. My leg was hurting a lot. The nurse had said I could have a shot of painkiller if I wanted, but that stuff they'd given me last night had mixed me up so bad that I'd rather have the pain. I lay there, staring at the date on the chart that the night light was shining on, June 16th. That date meant something. Cross-country provincials. I should have been running in Edmonton today, and for the first time I realized that no matter what I'd told myself, I really had wanted to run in provincials. A lot. Casey came to see me the next day. I think she was half scared to come because she sent her mom in first to ask me if I wanted to see her. For the smartest girl in class, she sure could be dumb. Just because I was mad at the whole world didn't mean I was mad at her or her mom. Mrs. Sutherland left to do some shopping and sent Casey in. She stopped about 10 feet from the bed, and we stared at each other. I was kind of embarrassed, lying there with my bare leg in the air and everything, and Casey didn't seem to know how to handle the situation either. "Hi," she said in a small voice. "Hi," I said. We stared at each other some more. "So, how are you?" she started, but I didn't give her a chance to finish. I had been asked that question at least 100 times that day, and she was the first person I knew well enough to get mad at. "Case, if you ask me how I'm feeling, I'm going to throw you out of here." She gave me a strange look, probably trying to decide if I'd suffered brain damage. Then she started to smile, and the smile turned into a giggle. "You sure don't look as dangerous as you sound," she said. I wasn't in the mood to find anything funny, especially not myself, but looking at her, I suddenly found myself grinning. I also found myself getting a kink in my neck trying to see her at all. "Hey," I said, "it's not contagious, you know." "What?" she said, giving me that puzzled look again. "The busted leg. Are you just going to stand there waiting for me to get up, or are you going to come over here and talk to me?" She came, sat by the bed, and looked over all the junk I was hung in. "Yuck, that is gross. Does it hurt?" "Some." We kept running out of things to say to each other, probably because we were avoiding the things really needed saying. Finally, I had to get it over with. Listen, Casey, about Friday night, I'm sorry I got into the fight with Dad at your place. It wasn't your fault that he was drunk. Yeah, but I didn't have to pick a fight with him in front of your whole family. She gave me a long look then, and somehow it made me feel like I was a lot younger than her. Shane, she said in a kind of tired voice, as if she was explaining something to a slow learner, I wish you'd quit thinking just because we live in that big castle on the hill, it's a Sutherland magic kingdom where the rain never falls. I mean, I wasn't going to faint dead away because you and your dad did a little yelling at each other. Don't you think I've seen a family fight before? That was one of those questions that there is no safe answer to. Well, I mean, your family would never. I had the sentence started, but I couldn't figure out how it was going to end. Casey interrupted and saved me the trouble anyway. She shook her head. Get serious, Shane. You've seen enough of my parents to know how different they are from each other. Don't you think they ever see things differently? Don't you think they ever get mad at each other? This time I had sense enough not to try to think of an answer. I bet you a lot of money that when it comes right down to it, our family doesn't get along any better than you and your dad do. I thought that over. Maybe there was some truth to that. My mind went back to the night in the Sutherlands' yard. In between all the yelling Dad and I did, it seemed to me that they had done some yelling too. Yeah, Case, I see what you mean, but there's one big difference. What's that? You never said anything so bad to your dad that he couldn't come back. Your dad knows you didn't mean those things. Yeah, then how come he's gone? How come he just left me lying there on the road and never even came to the hospital? I didn't really expect that she had an answer, but what I got was a question. Why'd you get on that motorcycle and tear out of our place that night, Shane? I didn't like that question. I liked the answer even less. I stared at the ceiling because I couldn't take any more of what was happening between Dad and me. I had a feeling Casey had just proved a point, but she kept talking anyway. And if your fast trip to nowhere hadn't got messed up by a car, were you planning to just keep running forever? It was beginning to feel like I was being interrogated by the RCMP. No, I muttered. I would I would have come back after I got things straightened out a little better. Casey nodded. You and your dad aren't as different as you think, she said. What's that supposed to mean? She just grinned. He'll be back, she said, like she knew what she was talking about. I wanted to believe it, but I didn't know what to believe anymore. I just didn't know. And that's chapter 17, folks.